Welcome to something that's going to become more accustomed here. It's not rant videos. I don't do rants anymore unless the tone of the subject requires one. That's the first thing. Second thing, I might cough a lot because I'm still recovering from the COVID. So give me a little bit of patience here. But for the last few days, I have, of course, like many, like 8 million people, have been sitting here and playing Xdefinant, the new free-to-play Ubisoft jerk-off simulator of a COD clone. And as a COD player going into Xdefinant, but unlike other COD players that either give Activision yearly blowjobs or just want to talk just general-ish about the game all the time when really they should stop playing the game entirely, I am an X-Defiant player that finds himself in the middle. Why? Not only because I'm centrist in most of my thought processes, but because I can actually analyze games without my subjective opinion fucking getting in the way of talking about a game's quality. X-Defiant is many things, but X-Defiant is schizophrenic. On one end, it wants to simulate old school Call of Duties like Black Ops 1 and the old Modern Warfares by promising there is no skill based matchmaking in the game, which, by the way, that's a falsity. Call of Duty always had skill based matchmaking. Shooters in the modern console era have always had some form of skill based matchmaking. In this case, it's just very loosely tweaked. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it just means it's very, very loose and doesn't play into the matchmaking system as hard outside of ranked play. In other words, an X Defiant connection and level are the key things that determine who you're matchmaked with, not exactly your your hours played or your skill level or even your kill death. In other words, if you connect to a server more cleanly to keep a game running without a ton of lag, or your level is based around most of the people in your lobby, you'll be matchmaked there. So there. That's the clarification you need without any subjective bullshit. That's how the matchmaking works. But, as I said before, the game is schizophrenic. Why? Because it's an objective based video game with primarily objective based modes that require team play, partnership, and expert working when most people that play modern shooters don't know the definition of the words of team play. Or they do know, but they pick and choose who their partners are. If you play this game with randoms, you will lose 70% of your games. Why will you lose 70% of your games? Because your teammates don't act like teammates. Yes, 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 communication. But let's be honest, most of us don't even put our mics on. And for full transparency, I just don't. Because I don't like talking to people outside of my own party menu because all of you ruin video games for me. Literally, by the teasing because of my disability and my lack of actual quality skill. Sorry, I don't want to hear people yelling over the mic about something that I can't prevent. So I mute you all. There, I said it plainly. So if you're ever playing Xdefinant or any other shooter with me, no, that's why I don't want to hear you or can't hear you because I choose to. Let me make that perfectly clear. You ruined it for yourselves. I can be a pretty cool dude, but because of my early years playing games online, it pretty much ruined the spirit of communication for me. Plain and simple. Yeah, I was battle hardened in those old Modern Warfare 2 rooms too. Only it made me depressed, suicidal, and not willing enough to play the video game. The only reason I played those old Modern Warfares is for my own self-accomplishment of getting 10th prestige. That's the only thing that kept me going. But what Xdefiant sorely needs is to decide what game it wants to be. A game with high team-based gameplay, play encouraging objective capture and objective capture, and keeping teams together, or a game with high time to kill wonky weapon balance, especially at the start with SMGs and pistols doing about as much damage as a fucking water balloon, and the over reliance on headshots to get anything done, and poor netcode when it comes to hit detection, or doesn't want to be a killer's game. The reason why you see in most X-Defiant rooms things becoming a killer's game is because the kill death ratio, the kill count is too high. And the time to kill being so high that it is creates this atmosphere. Combined with very far distancing spawn points and no ability to spawn on teammates. This creates an objective nightmare. Your mission of the game is to, well, capture objectives. The game's current gameplay flow and gameplay choices, especially with the spawns, don't encourage teamwork, team play, or proper objective capture. Just to solidify my thoughts even deeper, I went into Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3's Season 4 last night, playing the small map playlist. I played 3 games in total. One led to victory, the other 2 led to defeats. Yes, my kill counts in those games were 20 plus, but I don't give a damn about my kill count. I give a damn about winning, especially in objective games. But in objective games, because you actually have the notion of spawning on your teammates and relatively close spawns to objectives, this encourages better and more defined team play, and it gives the team the ability to rally up. The reason why snipers create so much of a problem in Xdefiant is because of the distance between the spawn, where you spawn at any given time, and the objective is far too far, and because players can pretty much line themselves around either the spawns or the objective points with very powerful snipers, they can use the high respawn time and deep spawn points without the ability to rally on team to pretty much shut a game down with little effort. This is best shown in the game mode Escort, where it's pretty much like that mode that I love very much in Black Ops 4, where you have to escort a package to a spot an objective, and you have to flip sides and prevent this via time clock. But due to the spawns being too deep and the inability to spawn on team, escort mode can become a massive pain in the neck and can be over within the first objective, meaning the first 3 minutes. Because basically, any good team with a good shot or two snipers on any team, if you want to be lazy, can pretty much shut the game down. The game's massive fix would either have to be a spawn on team function, which games like Call of Duty and Battlefield already show present, or a spawn closer to objective, which would mean changing where the objectives are on the map, which is a deeper and much harder task for the small team that Xdefinant has. So I would just take a simple spawn on teammate function to alleviate this. Yes, weapons need to be better balanced, especially a couple of the SMGs in the game. But the biggest problem is with the hit detection. Unless you have the damage values on, you'll end up getting hit markers. And without those damage values popping up, you won't even know if you're doing damage. More often than not, because of the game's netcode, you'll nail the first couple of shots, but it will end up as a zero sum of damage, especially from further ranges. And because of how the damage values work and the over reliance on headshot multiplier, you can be dead, hit a shot, and not feel like you hit one. The abilities are pretty much fun. The kill streaks, well, we don't need kill streaks in this game. It would be another thing that would create an empathetic and anti-goal nature to the game's objective play, let alone team-based play. Plus, the maps, by the way, are classic 3-lane COD maps. None of these maps are especially big, sans 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 the terminal inspired map, which seems to be the only big map in the game's current map set. So, kill streaks would pretty much annihilate the game's already small 3-lane map structure, let alone the team pacing entirely. Would essentially annihilate an already sort of on its last legs gameplay flow. And the only reason that you can see the game even being good as a player is when you're actually with a good team and you're allowed to see the game becoming more of a proper flow towards gaining and maintaining objectives. But because of the way that players audibly play, this proper experience is very, very hard to attain and won't happen for at least 60% of your gameplay. The leveling system and the unlock system is absolutely fine. The dead set objective does seem a little bit absurd, and I wish there were more free tiers of the battle pass. Or at least they should have given the first one, seeing that it's called pre-season, for free, similar to what they're doing with multiverses and the revamp of that game there. I'll be making a video about that on top of the Aelita Diaries next week, by the way. But the biggest addition that this game needs is a more purely team deathmatch mode. And I would even suggest a mode similar to Search and Destroy that would best utilize the game's fast time to kill and reliance of keeping the team together. Plus, a mode like Search and Destroy would better help the Dead Set and Echelon teams be more successful and more character picked within gameplay. The Cleaners and the Levitard are the most useful playstyles to this point, as well as the Phantoms can be useful if you know how to put their shielding up right. But again, to make the shielding actually good, you have to keep the teams together. That's why my biggest critical suggestion is to fix the spawns. I've said this 4 times in this video, but it cannot be understated. If there is no spawn on team and the spawns remain this long in the tooth, you might as well have a team deathmatch mode. Because the objective games, especially for those that don't act like a team, can be a slog. It's not that the game isn't fast enough, it is. It's just the minor points of netcode and the way the aim down the sights feel, plus the lack of mounting and the lack of snap the target, makes the game not feel as fast mechanically as the actual movement is. Yes, the movements are fast, but but the actual gun mechanics using aim down sights and other things feel slow. Yes, the lesser auto aim is okay, but if you were going to have a lesser auto aim, this would have to be changed with better and somewhat slower time to kill. People on YouTube have been saying that Call of Duty feels slow. The Call of Duty slowness is actually intentional to highlight the mechanical speed in which the gunplay can be executed. And this can be felt when you're playing both games seemingly back to back. The gun mechanics are slower than your character's actual individual movement, while in Call of Duty, the gun mechanics are as fast as the movements. But because gun mechanic happens a lot more in sessions of Call of Duty, you feel the gun mechanic speed rather than the individual movement. Why? Because you're not moving as much. It's not that Call of Duty feels slow. It's that Call of Duty requires less movement because its time to kill is relegated to things like ADS and bullet velocity. In other words, the speed mechanic of how the guns actually operate and how fast you can aim them, rather than your individual movements. This is the difference between Xdefinant and Call of Duty. One is based around player positioning and proper player defense before taking shots, while Call of Duty is about gun movement, proper proper use of gun utility, things like speed. It's an attachment based game rather than a movement based game. That's why Call of Duty feels slower than Xdefiant. It's because both games are going for different mechanical goals. It's not just the skill-based matchmaking on hand. So, which game do I still prefer? Well, I prefer Call of Duty because of its better tightly, more executed, and pretty much at this point, flawlessly done gunplay rather than the movement that Xdefiant provides. But Xdefiant does provide that alternative, but without the right changes to the spawn or modes that can utilize successfully the game's higher time to kill, the 8 million could drop to half that within 6 months. Xdefiant has a great foundation, but it's going to be up to the team and Ubisoft to make the right decisions to keep that number at 8 and climbing. And oh, just another suggestion. Get rid of the abilities entirely and switch it to a normal perk system. It would better focus your focus on military and gun tactics rather than trying to be an Overwatch clone. The abilities almost get in the way of the gunplay you're trying to execute. Just one last tip. So what are your feelings on Xdefiant? Let your Rainbow King know. And until the Ileated Diaries, well, on Monday, I'm Nirvana Sparkle. Find peace in your own Nirvana, and no matter what game you play, whether it be COD or Xdefiant, you might find me there. And find a way to enjoy them in your own way.